This is a story that was shared on Reddit and quickly went viral, accumulating thousands of upvotes and comments. People couldn't get enough of it, with many expressing shock, fear, and even disbelief. The poster, who had never imagined their experience would resonate with so many, initially shared it as a quick, personal anecdote. But as the upvotes piled up, it became clear that this was a story that needed to be heard. It's a tale of an evening walk that turned into something much more sinister, all because of one loyal dog who sensed something was wrong before anyone else did. This is the story of how a woman's dog, Cooper, saved her from a danger she hadn't yet realized was lurking in the shadows, and why the memory still gives her chills to this day. Before we begin, go ahead and give this video a like as a way to share the love and support this story. It was a cool autumn evening when I decided to take Cooper, my German Shepherd, for a walk to the nearby park. The sun had just set, and the sky was streaked with shades of orange and purple. I breathed in the crisp, cool air, the faint smell of fallen leaves lingering as a light breeze swept through the neighborhood. I love this time of day. The world seemed to slow down, and it was just the perfect time for a quiet stroll. Cooper trotted happily beside me, his tail wagging slightly with each step. I wasn't sure if it was the quiet or the fact that he was always so eager to explore the world around him, but I love these walks. The park was only a 10-minute walk away, but it was a little oasis in the middle of the suburban landscape, a place where I could clear my head and get away from the chaos of daily life. But tonight, something felt different. I couldn't put my finger on it, but as we reached the end of the block, I noticed Cooper wasn't as energetic as usual. He was still walking by my side, but his pace was slower than normal, and his body seemed unusually tense. He kept looking around, ears perked up, and his gaze flickered toward the darker corners of the street. "Cooper, what's up with you tonight?" I asked, crouching down to give him a reassuring pat. He briefly looked up at me, but then returned his attention to the shadows, his growl low and almost imperceptible. I wasn't sure what had gotten into him, but I brushed it off. Maybe it was the silence or the fact that the sun had set a little earlier than usual. We reached the park gates, and I felt a subtle tension in the air. The park was almost empty, save for the occasional jogger or someone walking their dog. A couple of street lamps illuminated the walking paths, but most of the park was still shrouded in twilight. It was peaceful, but something about it felt off. Cooper was acting even more strangely now. He stopped walking entirely and just stared into the darkness between the trees. His body was rigid, and his tail, which usually wagged happily when we were here, was tucked down low. His ears were straight up, focused on something I couldn't see. "Cooper, come on, let's go for a walk," I said gently, tugging the leash lightly. But Cooper didn't budge. He only took a few steps forward, and then his attention snapped back toward the trees. He growled softly, and I immediately felt a wave of unease wash over me. What was he sensing that I couldn't? My heart started to race. I glanced around, trying to make sense of the situation, but I couldn't see anything that stood out. I shook my head, telling myself I was being paranoid. There was no reason to be worried. I tugged on the leash again. "Come on, Coop," I said with more authority this time. But Cooper wasn't having it. He stayed rooted to the spot, his eyes locked on the far end of the park, where the trees met the sidewalk. I couldn't see much beyond that, just dark, stretching shadows. That's when I heard it, the faint sound of footsteps crunching on gravel in the distance. I froze. It wasn't just one person. There were two sets of footsteps getting closer. I strained my eyes, trying to make out any details. There were two men, walking together, moving slowly but deliberately. Something about the way they walked didn't feel right. They were still far enough away that I couldn't hear their voices, but I could feel the tension building in the pit of my stomach. Cooper was still growling, now louder, the hair on his back standing up. I pulled on the leash again, trying to get him to focus on me, but he was fixated on the men, his gaze never wavering. "Cooper, let's go," I muttered, trying to sound calm as I began to turn around and head back the way we came. But it was too late. The men had noticed us. One of them, a little taller than the other, turned toward us and took a few steps in our direction. He stopped just out of earshot, but stood there, watching. The other man followed his lead. Neither of them moved any closer, but they didn't leave either. Cooper was still growling, more aggressively now, barking in short bursts. He was definitely on edge. His stance was firm. He was ready to protect me if necessary. I pulled the leash tighter, trying to keep him under control. But my own nerves were starting to get the best of me. I didn't like the way the men were staring at us. I didn't know if it was curiosity or if they were sizing us up, but I felt like we were in some sort of quiet standoff. "Cooper, stop," I whispered, my heart beating fast. I knew I had to stay calm, but the situation was rapidly slipping out of my control. One of the men, the taller one, finally spoke. "Is something wrong with your dog?" His voice was too casual, like he was trying to make a joke out of it. But the way he said it didn't sit right with me. There was no friendly tone, no effort to ease the situation, just an edge that made my spine tingle. Cooper barked again, louder this time, his body tense as if he were about to pounce. I could feel him pulling toward the men, still on guard. "Cooper, no," I muttered, my hand starting to shake as I gripped the leash. "Hey, calm down," the man said, now taking a step closer. His hand was still in his hoodie pocket, and I could see his posture shift from casual to something more aggressive. My heart skipped a beat. My instinct screamed at me that something was wrong. "I'm just trying to walk my dog," I said, my voice firmer now, trying to keep my composure. "Please don't come any closer." But instead of backing off, the men took another step forward. I felt a knot form in my stomach. My mind raced. What should I do? What was their intention? They were too close for comfort now. Without thinking, I turned around and started walking briskly back toward the park exit, trying to maintain my pace without panicking. I could hear their footsteps behind me, quickening as they followed. I picked up my pace, my breath shallow now as I tried to stay calm. I wasn't far from the exit, but the feeling of being followed made my stomach twist with anxiety. Cooper was still growling low, his focus entirely on the men, but I kept walking, hoping to outpace them. "Cooper, stay with me," I whispered urgently, but my dog was practically dragging me along now, pulling against the leash as if he knew we needed to get away. The footsteps behind me grew louder, and I felt a cold rush of fear. The men weren't slowing down. I didn't know how far behind they were, but I didn't want to turn around to find out. "Cooper, let's go. Now," I urged, my voice shaking as I started to run. But it felt like the men were gaining on me. I could hear their footsteps closing the gap, too close for comfort. Just when I thought I couldn't run any longer, I heard one of them call out, "Hey, we're not gonna hurt you, all right?" The words were jarring, almost too calm, and I didn't know how to respond. I kept running, my legs feeling like jelly beneath me, until I was almost at the park gates. "Cooper, come on, we're almost there," I panted. The dog stayed close to me, still alert, but I could hear the men's voices fading behind us. I finally reached the entrance to the park and bolted out into the quiet street. I didn't stop until I was safely back home, the front door securely locked behind me. I leaned against the door, my heart racing, trying to catch my breath. Cooper was already lying on his bed, his eyes following me carefully, as if making sure I was okay. I sank down onto the couch, hands shaking as I stroked his fur, thankful that we had made it back without anything worse happening. "Good boy, Coop," I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. "You kept us safe." Cooper's tail thumped once on the floor, as if to say, "I've got your back." I ran my hands through his thick fur and took a deep breath. My heart was still pounding, but the danger had passed. And in that moment, I realized how much I depended on him. Not just as a companion, but as my protector, my loyal friend. I might never know what those men really wanted, but with Cooper by my side, I knew that I was never truly alone. If you made it this far, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story or it resonated with you in any way, don't forget to give this video a like. It really helps support the channel and lets me know you want more stories like this. And before you go, let me know in the comments, have you ever had a moment where your pet sensed something before you did? I'd love to hear your stories. Make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on more incredible real-life stories. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.